Would you mind starting with introducing yourself and what it is
hmm
that you do? Quite a varied CV you've got.
Quite a varied CV. So I'm Ali Cook, and originally I was a magician, and I was very lucky to become one of the few TV magicians. So I did 7 series for a company called Objective, who sort of became famous because they made Peep Show, the sitcom, as well. And I used to do a lot of light entertainment shows. And from there, actually, my old producer there, Andrew O'Connor, is a very famous producer in telly. He said, "Oh, you should do acting and comedy." So one of my friends, Pete Furman, we both went onto the comedy circuit to try and get funnier, and which the fact that I now make films reveals a lot. And he and from there, kind of learnt to write. I would say some
Right.
that's very difficult.
Would you mind giving maybe the log line for the Pearl Comb for those listening?
Yeah, so it's been a while now. I used to say this every week, but
Yeah,
now so in 1893, a Cornish fisherman's wife claims to be the first person ever to cure somebody of tuberculosis. A doctor is sent to investigate her miraculous claim, only to discover the true source of her power. One day I was in a comedy club, and then someone asked me to be in a film, and then that's when the whole sort of drama thing kicked off. So, unlike a lot of people, mine's been more circumstance, really, how things have evolved.
yeah, not your standard career route for filmmakers, I'll say that much.
No, not
No.
at all. No.
What would you say is the underlying theme between all of these different roles?
Oh, that's a good question. I do have a theory on this, but it's really nerdy,
Oh,
and
go for it. We love a bit of
it,
nerdy.
it's studying the three act structure is the
Okay.
secret to being, I think, a good storyteller, a good magician, a good comedian, and not fully translates to acting, but understanding scenes. It certainly helps to understand scenes as an actor.
That is true. And with all of those, you're performing, you're storytelling. It's just taking on various forms, but it is very interesting. Curious to know how you pulled the rabbit out of the hat with so many of the special effects. I mean, special effects, practical effects. I've watched the Pearl Comb more than once. I think we're on 3 times by now, and each time it's like I pick out something that makes me stop and go, "How?"
One of the things I always wanted to do is I wanted to put magic on screen. So I was a live performer for a long time, and I like the fact that when you do magic, you can genuinely mesmerize people or astonish people. And I define astonishment as that moment you stop thinking, and then that's when you have the chance at making someone feel wonder.
Hmm.
And then at the highest level, you can make people have hope, I think. But you can't always do that, only once in a while. And so those are the skills you learn as a magician. And then I thought, can I do that in film, basically?
Right.
Uh, so that's really how I did it. But then on a very mundane, practical level, as a magician, you learn loads of sneaky things that maybe people don't know. So when it comes to doing practical effects, I have a few tricks up my sleeves, literally, quite often doing things people haven't seen before. And then I try to mix practical with VFX as much as I possibly can, so that the audience is a little bit confused as to how you did it.
Yes, I mean that for me, watching the Pelcomb, there was that moment where the rabbit goes from being, well, we presume dead. It certainly doesn't look alive, and then suddenly is reanimated. You've got a bit of a running theme with reanimating dead animals if you
I
take the cunning
do,
man
yes, I do.
into.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know why I do that, but yeah, you're right.
There you go. There's the pattern. But also, that is one of your magician tricks is
Yeah.
hypnotizing rabbits. So it must have been quite fun to be able to show some of those skills to the crew because a lot of that sort of stuff they wouldn't have seen before either.
No, I'm always boring crew with magic. Uh, I'd love to say they enjoy it, but they're like, should we just get on with it? So
Right.
it's a bit like that, really. Um, But no, I think in terms of the structure of tricks, magic tricks have a very defined structure, and I think in terms of that, in terms of a scene, so a magic trick, there's only two types of magic trick: a suspense magic trick or a surprise magic trick. And the absolute killer is a suspense magic trick with a surprise.
Ah.
And I sort of look at films in the same way.
I mean, it's the classic thinking of the payoff, right? As from a writing perspective, you do think of the payoff, and you put these little hints beforehand. I mean, there was, of course, the foreshadowing with the mermaid. I noticed her talking about the two slits under the chin to make gills for the,
Yes,
and then, of course, your character runs into an unfortunate similar situation.
later on. Yeah.
He doesn't grow the gills as far as I'm aware. Um,
Yeah.
gosh, yeah. I
Well, I
mean,
mean, if you can, it's great when you can foreshadow. Uh, really, because when you do that, I think people, um, to me, that's a little bit like a great joke. So a great joke is when someone gives you two elements and then they're connected in a way you couldn't possibly imagine. And then that's when you laugh at the surprise of the connection, you might say.
mm,
And I think that's the same thing with foreshadowing. That's why, we love a bit of Poirot
oh
when you're
yes.
like, oh, of course, she was a nurse. That means she poisoned him or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That you're given these facts, but you're not given much more than that. But they are definitely there.
Mm.
And if you don't give the audience those moments, they feel a little bit cheated as well.
And you know what? Fair question to bring up on that because when I was watching, I was surprised by finding myself laughing every once in a while. There was some great dialogue from the fisherman's wife, Luty, and
Yeah.
like moments with the comb going in the guy's beard, for example, that
Yes.
you don't really typically, I don't know. It helped break up, I think, a lot of the overall darker grittiness and grounded in something quite human and funny and in that moment. How important is it then for you to include some of those elements into the script, or do you feel like that's just you projecting some of your comedic background into your projects?
That is, it's quite an interesting debate, this one, because I have one of my friends who's a filmmaker who says you should not do that. And
Okay.
so, for example, he made quite a dark sci-fi film, and he thinks genre, you have to totally stay within the genre.
Yeah.
Uh, but I totally disagree. I feel that when you watch really great shows, they're quite often combining loads of elements, but
Mm.
the overall tone is that of a fantasy film or that of a comedy, whatever.
Yeah.
I think that basically a little bit of humor, it allows you to break the tension so you can
Yeah.
rebuild it again. That's one of the things. Or it's great if you can use a bit of humor to get through some exposition, because generally the exposition can be boring. So what can you do to try and make it exciting?
Mm.
And one way to do that is it's somehow revealed as a joke, for example.
Right.
So the bit in the pearl comb is one of the bits of exposition you have to understand is someone needs to have a comb in their hair for it to work. So if we take away the comb, the hair, i.e., it's a bald guy, then they put it in the beard. Then you realise it's also the third time you've seen someone being healed.
Yeah.
So there's another common thing called the rule of three you may have heard of that um, by the time you do the same thing a third time, you need to put a little twist in there just to
Right.
kind of keep the audience entertained.
I see. From a
Yeah,
writing perspective, it sounds like you've done quite a lot of discovery, really, on the things that work when it comes to short films, when it comes to storytelling, three act structure, as you say. When you started to go on that journey, moving from the magician work, the comedy work, the filmmaking work, what were some resources that you found was really beneficial to you, or I don't know, people that you found helped you learn more about the filmmaking process before you really got dug into it?
Well, that's a good question. Roles, when you say someone's a director or someone's a producer, they can be quite loose terms. So you have to sort of think about what do you know a lot about and then stay in your lane a little bit.
Mm.
So, for example, I'm not very knowledgeable on cameras and lenses, but I do have a brilliant DOP who's obsessed with that. So there are some directors who I would say are more or less DOPs, whereas
Mm.
I would really consider myself a writer and I worry about telling the story, but I would never worry about the shots.
Yeah.
But that means you have to have someone you really trust it.
Mm.
So I sort of look at it in that way, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yes, it
But
does.
but in terms of learning stuff, I I don't think it matters what you do. Whatever you do, you'll use it in your filmmaking. So if you were a ballerina, there'll be something about being a ballerina that you would use if you were making a film.
That's a good
If
point.
you were a plasterer, there'd be something about plastering that you would. All you do is you're sort of translating how the structure of how you think about stuff into a story, basically.
Mm.
But I think the more unique it is, the better it is, in a way, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
That's true. And I mean, you're able to give quite an unusual perspective there. I think there's something that's generally universally, or at least in my mind, fascinating about magicians and what it is they do. They entertain, they trick audiences. I've got a bit of a mixed relationship with watching, not mixed, mixed views, mixed emotions. That's it, mixed emotions when watching a magician perform. Because on the one hand, it's great to feel that amazement in the moment, and then on the other, it's pure and utter annoyance and not knowing how they did it and feeling completely bamboozled as to how. But that
yeah.
that I think is more a side
I
note for
think I
me.
think the I think the main thing about being some sort of a live performer,
Yeah,
you get a very you get a very immediate response from an audience, and you get very used to knowing when is an audience confused
right.
and when is an audience bored, or is when is an audience loving it.
Mm,
So, and I think anything where you're on a stage helps. It
right.
doesn't have to be you're a comedian or a magician or even an actor, but just something where you're on stage. When it
Hmm.
comes to then making a film, for me, quite often, pe- when I've watched a lot of short films, I don't think when they're in the edit, people are thinking what is the audience thinking.
Mm,
I know that sounds overly simplistic, but you have to really think in every moment what is the viewer thinking right now?
right.
And every time you cut, how are you adding to that?
Mm,
I know that's how, but that's really how a live show is built up. And
mm,
I used to perform at the Edinburgh Festival a lot, and
yeah.
I really died on my arse a lot. And so I think that fear of
Mm.
dying on my arse is is quite a good skill when it comes to trying to make a short film.
Yeah. No, it's not something I've really thought about before, but it does make sense. And I mean, a lot of great writers do come from stand-up backgrounds.
Even bad comedians are good writers. And the standard of comedy in Britain is so high. It's really hard just to become a paid comedian.
Mm.
Whenever you see any comedian in Britain, they're even if they're like just at a normal comedy club, they're already pretty bloody good. So like
We do have a
yeah,
very high standard, it's
it's a
true.
very high standard. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Quite intimidating, to be honest. And I mean, oh man, I had the interesting experience of trying to write, direct, produce, and act in a very short comedy, short film.
No, yeah.
I think it was more a learning experience. I'll put it down as that because so much of comedy is timing, and that goes
Oh,
in the edit, that goes in like at every level, you're thinking timing. Um, and that's not a skill that I clearly had developed as much as one would like, but it is an interesting insight. And to be honest, I wouldn't mind putting myself out there a bit more with the comedy because I think it's such a powerful storytelling skill to have.
yeah,
So,
it's a really funny one. Is
no pun intended, huh?
no pun intended, but I mean, comedy acting's hard because
Yeah,
it is built in the edit.
it is.
Like it could be quite badly done on the day, but if it's edited well, or vice versa, it could be really well performed on the day and not edited well, and you're still screwed. That's
Mm,
why it's so hard.
really
The
is.
only thing I can say about comedy, you seem to get funnier by doing it, and it doesn't seem very linear. You just seem to get better, and I don't even know why or how you get better. It's a really weird, that is the one of the eternal mysteries. Is you? I
Quite
noticed
reassuring, to be honest. I mean, it's not down to you, it's just down to doing it lots, you know.
it is doing it. I think Jerry Seinfeld said that. Yeah, stand up is calculated trial and error, but at some level, just doing it a lot is really the answer. Like that's the answer.
That
Yeah.
is good. Would you say the same is true for making films as well? Like,
Yeah, I do think that. But I don't know. I think I do think that. And then I also think there is some sort of insight into what it is you want to make as well, you know.
mm,
Um, and although that insight may not appeal to people, but it might. I mean, yeah, these are all very imponderable things, really. Yeah.
right. And what sort of stories then is it that you want to be telling? Like, what's the aspiration? What's the goal? Have you got one, or are you just enjoying the journey?
No, well, my original thought was, can I put magic on film? That was the original. So it was anything magic related.
Okay.
That was the first thing. And then I quite like the idea that maybe the best things I might end up doing is trying to give people hope, I
Mm,
think. I think that would be the best film I could do, but I don't know what that film is yet, basically.
right. I see.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, Murderous Mermaids does not, in my mind, equate to hope, but there are
Not
some love.
really.
No,
Yeah.
look, it's an incredible film though, and well
Well, but
deserved on
but
the.
the woman though, she wins under impossible
She
circumstances.
really does, yes.
She does. So
Mm,
it is in a way. It is in a way, but it is quite a
hopeful.
brutal way.
Yeah, I mean, interesting character actually that you wrote there because, on the one hand, very innocent Cornwall fisherman's wife, with a fantastic accent and performance, and she seems like the type to bake and give hugs,
Yeah,
and she's got that sort of warm uh atmosphere about her. But then you learn a bit more closer to the end. She's perhaps. In your mind, has she changed, or has she always sort of had that darker side to her?
oh, she's always had the darker side, but I'm a big believer in, I there's that phrase with writing that a character is a war of opposites.
Mm,
So, and you'll see, the really classic example is if you've ever had a friend who's in a relationship and all they ever do is post about their girlfriend or boyfriend,
yes,
they're the ones where it's all going to go horribly wrong. So, so it's always there's always that war of opposites.
right,
So if someone seems so sweet, the pendulum's got to swing the other way.
right.
So I tend
Within
to look at
character.
characters like that. Yeah,
Very interesting,
yeah.
definitely. One question that's more for me. What happens when she runs out of relatives?
Yeah, it's an interesting an interesting. I've thought about it as a feature film,
Oh,
and that ends up being one of the issues. Yeah,
I can see that
yeah,
being quite a funny sort of conundrum to run into, to be honest.
yeah.
Terrifying, but at the same time, it's like, oh no, running a bit low on relatives there. No, it's I mean, there's that. I'm also curious about how the mermaid managed to get. I mean, look, I'll put a spoiler alert before we have this discussion, so we don't have to worry about giving away major plot points. But the mermaid getting captured, or do you think that
Yeah.
was the fisherman's wife using her charms in some way, perhaps to lure her and then trap her?
Yeah, I think it was her, and there'd have to be someone else.
Oh.
And I think if there was a film, you would find out how that person is.
Mm.
And I also think that that would be. I think you could come up with a really clever way as to how they did it.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
she's been trapped once before, except she was
yes,
rescued that time.
yeah.
So, mm.
I think it would be, some sort of false young man who's apparently being lured by the mermaids,
Ah,
and then right
yes.
at the last minute they spring a trap on her. I think
See,
that'd
I'd
be,
watch that. I would
yeah.
watch that as a feature, definitely. Is the feature something you've entertained as far as like, genuinely as a possibility of making it, or are you not really
No,
thinking about that at this moment?
I've been writing another one at the moment,
Ah,
and I finished it yesterday. But it took about
congratulations.
yeah, first draft, and that's a ghost story, and I've just finished that. But it's only because of the Pearl Combe success that I'm considering it.
Okay.
Basically, originally I do just try to write something to be its own thing, and I always thought of it. I originally wanted it to be 15 minutes. It ended up being about 20, um,
Right.
and that was it really. Yeah.
Mm, mm. It's been given a great reception from the industry. It's on Disney Plus. How are you able to get it on Disney Plus? I know we spoke about this in person at Indie Links, but I think for aspiring filmmakers, being able to get their film on a platform
Mm.
is huge, really.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, it's almost impossible. And I was approached. So it's not like you can just write to Disney Plus. It doesn't. It doesn't really work like that. However, in the short film world, there are sales agents. So really, and there's a few of them. There's not many, but there are, and you can just Google different ones, or if you go to any of the larger festivals, sometimes they'll be doing a talk.
Mm,
And I went to Tampere in Finland, and there were a few of the sales agents there. But really, if you want to have a shot at trying to get onto a streamer, really, you either know someone who's somehow connected,
yeah.
or you try and go through one of the sales agents. But the sales agents normally they'll sell it to an airline, something like that. So the
Right.
Pearl Comb has just been sold to Irish Airlines. I've just found out,
Fabulous.
yeah, for example. But none of these are big money earners. They're all that, but they are very nice that you get the opportunity to spread it to a wider audience. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, but those are really the two routes. I'd heard somebody had recently got a short onto Netflix, but and I believe they somehow they knew someone somehow is the rumor, but
Right.
but there's not really a clear system. I
Yeah.
think there might become more of a system because Disney, for example, they are buying more shorts, and I think people are now beginning to open up to the idea that shorts are a worthy form of entertainment now. They were always
Mm,
seen as a stepping stone, but
yeah.
now we live in a social media age. I think people actually just enjoy them.
Do you see your own short films as more of a stepping stone, or in your mind, have you always just wanted to focus on the shorts?
I think if you had a career plan, you would go to film school first. And then at film school, you would do four shorts. And then out of those four shorts, you would try and get into the industry in any way you can.
Mm.
Um, I was on telly doing magic shows at that time in my life, so I wasn't
Yeah,
even contemplating it. I feel like I make shorts because I feel like I've got an idea that somehow I feel like I've got to express it.
Mm.
Um, but then, in terms of a career plan, what else can you do other than make short films?
Yeah,
Because no one's going to give you £1 million just to make a film.
would be nice,
you,
but
and when you find out what everyone really has done to get there, I saw a thing the other day about the guy who made the film Moonlight, and I
mm.
think he was premiering at Toronto and simultaneously working the popcorn stand at another film festival. And
Wow.
when you actually hear those stories, it's a little bit more reassuring
Yeah.
because it's really not. I think everyone just thinks, oh, you make one thing and that's it. But it's always an accumulation of loads of things you've done.
Mm. Yeah, that is a fair point. And I mean, again, going back to the career path, yours has been probably the most exciting and colorful one I've come across, at least in the folks I've interviewed. Normally it's a case of, the one film and then another film, and you work your way onto a film set. And
Yeah.
no, but it's great. And there's certainly a lot to learn about filmmaking and storytelling through comedy, as we've discussed, and magic, as we have also discussed.
Yeah, I think it's just possibly any form of writing, really,
Yeah.
or putting on any form of show.
Mm.
You know, I really do think that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, it's fabulous. And for those who are curious to learn more, say about the magic side of things in how magicians um, structure their acts and finding perhaps some form of inspiration there for their own writing, for their own filmmaking. Where would you recommend they go to learn more?
um, well, you would learn the most by learning any trick and trying to perform it.
Okay. Goes
Because
down
if
to
you,
performance, doesn't it? Like tr
yeah,
just putting
well,
yourself out there.
a magic trick is it. Take a card, I'll lose it in the deck, and then I find it. So Act One is take a card. Act Two, the complication, we'll lose it in the deck. Act Three, against impossible conditions, I'll find it. So, and then if you could do that sort of trick, well, you would learn inherently the structure. You would learn if you're performing it where people are getting confused as you're trying to tell them what's going on,
Mm,
and then you would also learn how to make it more exciting or how to make it shorter, how to make it longer, all of those things. But there are also books. One is a famous one called Strong Magic, and it's quite heavily based on film theory.
okay.
Um, it quotes a lot of Robert McKee and his book Story.
Right.
Um, I'm a big believer in screenwriting books. I
Yeah.
think if someone's gone to that much trouble to study screenplays, at the very least, some of it's going to be very, very useful, I think.
Performance as a director as well, in placing yourself in your own film, how are you able to keep that balance between performance and then the director's eye, and then also the writer's own, like you wrote the script, and often directors, including yourself, might change a few things on the day. How did you balance between all those responsibilities and roles?
Yeah, well, it was very nerve wracking performing against Beatty, who plays Betty, because
Mm.
she's so experienced and she's such a talented actor. So that was quite nerve wracking. Um, but the main thing about being the writer is I know it so well that I'm not thinking, do I know my lines? I mean, someone like Beatty's given a couple of weeks to learn it. I've
Yeah.
been thinking about these lines for 2 years or whatever it is, so I
Right.
know it totally inside out.
Mm.
What is quite hard is you've got no one to really evaluate what you're doing. So that can be a bit nerve wracking. Although I
Yeah.
did the script supervisor and Amy, who works with me, who's one of the producers, they would watch the monitors for me, and in a way, they were helping me with my performance a little bit. I mean, it could be anyone. If you're in your own short, do you really? You overall though, you need someone supportive.
Mm.
That's the hard bit. Really, any actor's great if you give them enough support. So that's to me the big secret. So it's quite hard to give yourself the support. That's the hard bit. So if you're making a short and you're in it as well, do you really get on, say, with your cameraman? Would he
Mm.
give you little thought, constructive thoughts? Or I was once on a film set, and the sound man was really helpful in. He gave us loads of little tips and things like that. But
You
it
know what?
always
Yeah.
always has to be constructive.
Mm.
The worst thing is it's already so hard to be an actor on set, just in terms of nerves. That the main thing is making everyone feel comfortable. It's not a play. If you fluff a line, no one cares.
Yeah.
And so it's getting to that point where everyone feels nice and relaxed.
There you go. A
Yeah, that
very, very good film. And I'm going to attach a little review, I think, to this discussion at some point. Honestly, 10 out of 10 for me. Seriously. Great film, great storytelling, great speaking with you as well. I really do appreciate your time.
no
Um,
worries.
Fab.